panache is. It's a French war costume. Didn't they used to wear standout uniforms? Those red coat uniforms. Whenever you see a film about, you know, the British, particularly sort of during the early 1800s, at war, either with Napoleon or with the American revolutionaries or whatever, they were really kitted out, weren't they?
They were, yeah.
Those fantastic jackets.
Yeah. They went to town.
All of a sudden, our soldiers decided, no, we need to look like trees.
Yeah. Never understood all that either.
No.
And I don't understand people who wear camouflage gear to go to the shops, go to the supermarket.
That is...
They worry me.
Ludicrous.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
But you do see it.
Oh, God, yes.
You see it a lot.
Oh, God, yes. 08459570057. That's the telephone number of the switchboard. We've got a few calls, but we've had a lot of nonsense tonight, so I'm sort of cautious. But let's see if anybody wants to make sense on line 6.
Yes?
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Are you got me?
Yes?
I just want to say that I must get away from my radio. That the hooliganism, I think, is worse than it ever was. I go swimming in the morning, and all the trees, well, not all, but quite a lot of the lovely trees that are growing along Worthing seafront, big tall trees, are all pulled down. The people come along from the council, I suppose, straighten them up, next day down again. They go into Beach House Park, which is locked at night, where they have the World Bowls. They put all these lovely flowers out for the bowls. They come in and take all the plants. They even knock the stones that they do the balls with.
Yeah, who does this?
Off. And also, I don't think you should have the pubs open so long. That's not doing any good.
Alison and I asked you a question. Who's doing all that? You don't know.
I beg your pardon?
Who is pulling down trees?
I can't hear you.
Who's pulling down the trees? Who's doing it?
Who's doing it?
Yeah.
Well, we don't know, do we? There's no police around. It's in the middle of the night.
So what makes you think that hooliganism is worse?
I see it in the morning when I go swimming. And that's at 7 o'clock in the morning.
But look, the point is this. It was worse 40 years ago when the hooligans used to come down.
I remember those motorbikes.
Yes.
I don't think they caused half as much trouble. I'm 87.
Don't be silly. They were ripping the town up. There were thousands of them.
They went down to Ramsgate, Broadsquares and all those places. I remember.
Armies
They
of them.
came down with their motorbikes, but I don't think they did the damage that we're getting now.
That's ridiculous.
What do you call ripping the town up when you see what they're doing?
That's absolutely ridiculous. These were armies fighting, taking over the whole town. So many of them that the police just didn't have any sort of control whatsoever. It was anarchy. It was worse than anarchy. It was practically a social revolution, driven by anger and
How many
fear.
years ago was that?
40 years ago.
40. Well, I'm 87, and I remember all that.
Well, how can you possibly say it's worse nowadays? When was the last...
Well, I think it is. I've seen it, and I know.
Yeah, well,
you were young.
When
you
was the
probably were looking on the attitude of the young people.
When was the last time that happened?
What do you mean that happened? Well, it's happening now, isn't it, in a different way? It's not the same situation, but it's worse.
Look, no, that's ridiculous.
It's terrible, the damage they're doing. In the middle of the night, and night after night, it happens, and nobody's there to stop them.
No, that's absolutely, if you don't mind me saying so, to say that this damage which you allege, which is unseen, which may be caused by natural forces for all you know, because we do get wind down on Worthing Sea.
Oh, it's nothing to do with wind. That's ridiculous.
Let me finish. No, whoa, let me finish. To suggest that those pockets of antisocial behaviour directed at foliage, ma'am, okay?
Not only foliage, how about the walls they knocked down?
I'm finishing here. I'm going to finish, and I hope you're listening.
I am.
Because I want to tell you that the world is a better place now than it was 40 years ago, and I want to tell you that the pockets of antisocial behaviour that may or may not be caused by young people, aimed at foliage and pieces of irrelevant architecture, don't amount to a hill of beans compared to the absolutely unbelievable level of hooliganism that there was in the early 60s, not only at bank holidays, on all of our seafronts, which were completely...
I remember them coming down on bank holidays and weekends.
But if you ever went to a football match, ever, in the early 60s, there was nothing but the most grotesque, gigantic crowd fights between young hooligans who are now people claiming their bus passes.
Yes, that was the start of it all, and now it's got worse.
It hasn't. It hasn't. It simply hasn't. You're not awake to what's going on. You're just not awake to what's going on.
Listen, I'm 87 and I know what's happening. I've watched it over the years. There's nobody to stop them. There's nothing happening.
Well, who was stopping them 40 years ago? Well, they didn't do anything because there were too many of them. When those hooligans came down, we had policemen to stop them and hold them up. Now nothing's done. They didn't, though.
Because the money, the government are allowing the pubs to be open all the hours, goodness knows what. Yeah. And also, they say they've got no money. They've got plenty of money to fly around the world and have holidays. How about a few more police on the road?
I don't buy anything that you're saying.
Look after us who've worked for this country and fought for this country and lost our husbands through this country.
I don't buy anything that you're saying. I don't buy there's no accuracy in anything that you're saying. I completely reject the notion, utterly reject the notion that there is more hooliganism now than there was 40 years ago. That was the heyday of the hooligan in the early 60s because I'm a social observer and because I watched it. And I think there are people, and I dare say you might all be one of them, who like to think that things are worse now than they used to be 40 years ago.
Listen, I don't want to think. I want to see a better world. What do you think my husband's been in the Air Force and my son-in-law and all these people have been in the Air Force for years to encourage people like this? The first thing is they shouldn't have extra hours of opening drinking.
Well,
the government play a lot to blame.
I disagree with you. If you've ever been abroad, you will know.
I've been abroad. I've been all over the world.
Well, in that case, then you must be clever enough to know how that sentence
and
was going to finish.
The English are very badly behaved. We've got a very bad name abroad.
Yes, you know why?
Because they behave so badly.
No, why? Why do they behave badly?
Well, why is it?
Would you like me to tell you? Would you like me to tell you?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I will.
You know it all.
Yeah, I do. It's because we have had for 100 years the most ludicrous licensing laws in Europe. That's why we're so bad at alcohol.
Oh, that only applies to some people, but that's not the excuse.
It's totally the reason. If we'd had the licensing laws that they have in France, then we wouldn't have all these drunk kids. And we've had drunk kids.
Well, why don't they do something about it?
And we've had drunk kids, but they're doing something about it. They're giving us the same licensing laws that they have in France, where they have no alcoholic problems.
You're not telling me that they'll be worse than ever. I think it's disgusting, and the parents won't be able to do anything with their children. It's bad enough now, but when they're able to go in and drink when they like, all hours, the youngsters...
Are you saying to me then...
Anyway, I can't waste any more time. I think you talk a lot of rubbish at times. Sometimes you have quite a good bit, and when you started on a subject tonight, I was quite interested, and then you went off it.
Who asked you to give me your opinion about me as a person?
Well, we're entitled to. You give your opinion. You're quite rude to people at times.
Well, sometimes some people need
That's what your programme's all about, isn't it?
No, that's not true. Sometimes some people need to be asked what on earth it is they think they base their opinions on.
I can't argue with you anymore. I'm just giving a point of view, and I'm talking from experience. I've lived long enough to see so many things happening, and I've been all around the world, and I don't think things are any better now.
Well, why do so many old people think that?
I'm not old, thank you very much.
How old are you again?
I wouldn't be going swimming at 7 o'clock in the morning if I was old, and I'm 87.
Well, you can't say that you've lived an extremely long life, but you're not old. What's wrong with being old, anyway?
I've done everything, and I've seen everything, and I know...
The question is, why are you frightened of being called old? I won't be frightened of being called old.
I'm not frightened of being old. Well, I'm just talking... You're being rude when you say old.
That's rubbish, woman. That's
I phoned in to talk about the hooligans argue with you.
Nothing could be further than the truth. What I'm looking forward to is a world which is run by people who have lived a long and full life and who during that period have garnered some wisdom. Wisdom.
Well, all I can say is,
and if you can't realise the dramatic severity of the level of hooliganism that existed in this country 40 years ago, and how it totally eclipses the pockets of nonsense that you get nowadays, and constantly, as so many people do, for whatever reason, and I find it sad sometimes, and I find it very angering sometimes, then start saying it's the government's fault, then I don't know whether the number of years that you have lived matches the amount of wisdom which you ought to have, but perhaps don't yet.
That's just your opinion. I
hope you live for a lot longer.
Listen, when I was a child, I can remember the black shirts walking all around the streets.
Because there's still time for you to acquire
they never fall. They just...
and fuller perspective of the things that you've seen.
No, it's a waste of time talking to you.
Slam the phone down. Fine. That was good fun. She's obviously quite fit, looks after herself.
Yep. You do hear a lot of this, though, don't you, about the licensing laws, people getting their knickers in a twist. Don't understand it at all.
Knickers in
a twist. Yeah, people are just... I don't know, they're just against it because... I don't even know why, because they just have filled their head full of nonsense that if we have longer licensing hours at pubs, they imagine that the streets are going to be full of drunken people carrying out mindless violence.
Well, why doesn't it happen in France then?
Exactly.
It just
isn't going to happen like that.
You can drink 24 hours a day in America.
People just have this irrational fear.
They don't have hooligans in America.
No.
They don't have hooligans in France. And they've got intelligent licensing laws. This country's draconian licensing laws have long made us the laughing stock, a global laughing stock.
Completely.
We've got two things in this country that are known: hooligans and draconian licensing laws. So, I always believe in the twin track approach, don't you, to solving a problem. You sort of appear to act hard on it, so, okay, the government are considering making parents more responsible for the antisocial behaviour of children, and they're also going to stop parents behaving in an antisocial way towards their children. But the real job, the one that's going to really improve things in this country, is to do with giving people the freedom to live their lives as they want to. And I think that causes... That gives an awful lot of people a great sense of peace, knowing that they can drink when they want to. They don't. But, I can remember when you used to have to really sort of get down there quick and drink up fast because that somebody's going to ring a bell at 10:30. And Sunday lunchtime, we talked about Sunday lunchtimes in the pub earlier, it was a nightmare. You'd be standing around at 2 minutes to 12, hammering on the door. Come on! If I'm going to get nice 4 pints, I've got to really push it.
It's just
because
crazy.
Because it'll be last orders at 1:45.
And all this stuff about all the youngsters drinking nowadays. What, were the youngsters not drinking in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s?
People like that lady hasn't read any social history. You only read any amount of social history and you will discover that the country was an absolute gin-soaked, quagmire in sort of late Victorian times. People just lived on gin. Everyone was pissed. Because their lives were so awful and squalid. Let's have a look. Bill in Pulborough says, Tommy, the world's no better than 40 years ago. Who's this? We have anarchy in New Orleans. We've had